Greetings, 100 scholars. I'm really excited this week to be able to explore a different kind of text, a different kind of reading, in an important sense, a movie. And this movie, Office Space, is a classic film about work in the United States. Very funny, very dark, and we're going to take a look at it because I believe it adds to the conversation. So, why are we watching? Well, there's three questions I think we can explore by watching this film. The first is, why do we work? The second is, what are some of the key traps we fall into at work? And the third is, how is what we do connected to who we are? I think we're ready at this point in the course to recognize that when we talk about work, we're really talking about our philosophy of life and our sense of purpose. And that involves huge questions like ethics and beliefs and values and why we what we hope to achieve with our lives. And this film, for all its comedy, I think exposes some of the trade offs that we face and some of the traps we fall into in really productive ways that will help us answer this question of why do we work. I'm going to urge you to take notes while you're watching the movie, and that's not a natural habit. We're used to just sitting back and enjoying movies, and I totally get that. But this film is going to give you a text that you're going to use in a lot of ways in the class. I'll go on and talk about that in a few minutes. So when you're taking notes, you want to think about using that pause button, stopping the movie. That's again not natural, but when you hear something or you see something interesting, it's really fun to stop and make a note, and it's really productive for later when you want to use this material. So what are some things that you can look at in a film? Well, you can take a whole semester long film course to teach you all the million things you can look at that are going on in a screen. But here's a couple of the key ones. Obviously, dialogue. Dialogue helps us tremendously, especially when we want to use a film in a paper, because it gives us words. And so dialogue is, of course, a great source. But I want to talk about framing. And I chose this image from Office Space to talk about framing because it's important to recognize that directors carefully decide what's going to appear on a screen. Nothing happens accidentally in a movie. And so we have this lovely frame of two characters that you'll get to know when you watch the movie called the Bobs. They're outside consultants brought in to meet individually with employees in the who work at the company. And you can see how clever this framing is because behind them you can see the whole office space environment. But it's the backdrop to these two men who are perfectly centered in the screen. And their body language is so fascinating. The camera has clearly been zoomed into the exact place, and the table that they're at has been set up in such a way by the director that you can see them against the backdrop of the office space. So the employees they're interviewing have them and that claustrophobic world of office space behind them. So it's a great example of framing, and it's a really cool technique when you're watching a film to just stop it and say, what's in the frame? And often that will give you so much symbolic material to analyze and think about and talk about. Related to framing is, where's the camera and how's it moving? Angles and movement. In the background are things like sound and music. This movie is particularly interesting because of its music, and in particular a couple scenes that use over the top obscene rap, and I think that raises sort of comic questions about anger and frustration and alienation at the workplace. Costumes, the expressions of the actors, the body language, those are just sort of the classic basic kind of things you can look at to go a step beyond plot and dialogue when you read a movie. So you might be asking, how are we going to use this in the class? Well, we're actually going to use it in at least three ways. First of all, we're going to do at least two readers' conversations about this movie and another movie that we're watching in the course. So for the online students, the readers' conversations are what you're going to be posting in our discussion forum. For the on-site students, the readers' conversations are the paragraphs that you prepare and bring into class where you respond to a quote or an idea from a text. So both the on-site and the online groups will be using these scenes from the film to write paragraphs that will be part of what will later become your blog portfolio. There'll also be a quiz on the film that's going to look at quotes and details from the film just to make sure you watched it, but also to highlight some of the things you could talk about. And then historically, about half the class will end up using references to this film in their papers. Some will use it when they rewrite paper number 1. Many will use it in paper number 2 and or paper number 3. It becomes another text, just like Lapham's Lines of Inquiries and Lines of Work and Gig. Just another text that you can bring into the conversation where you feel it supports your claims that you're making in your paper. So hopefully this has given you a quick overview of what this film offers us and why we're going to be watching it. Take your time watching it. It's a blast, but expect to be really actively using it in the course. We're not just watching it for fun. All right, well, I'll catch up with you either online or in class to chat about this film, and I look forward to seeing, hearing, and reading what you do with it. Thanks.